Just as India is a global leader in energy efficiency, AEEE is a leader in India, and it's always a pleasure to come here. I was actually at the first FEED conference some years ago, and it's a pleasure to be back discussing, as Venkat has set out very well, the really tremendous things that have been happening in energy efficiency globally and in India in the last few years, and the key moment we're at now in terms of its visibility, as we saw, in terms of the opportunity for energy efficiency really to enhance all of our lives. And I want to speak about the journey that energy efficiency itself is in the middle of right now, going from awareness to ambition to action. And of course, everyone here has that awareness and has had for a long time of the importance of energy efficiency, not just as an essential component and the first fuel in meeting our climate targets, but also in terms of enhancing our lives through creating new jobs, protecting existing jobs, making energy more affordable and accessible, making our lives more comfortable and more healthy. Energy efficiency can contribute to all of these things and has been doing so for a number of years. But it has sometimes lacked that political focus and that business focus that maybe would really see us move from the progress we have been making to the next level of progress. And as Venkat mentioned very well, we saw a step forward in that in 2023, which was a historic year for ambition stepping up for energy efficiency, led in a very significant part by India when it was president of the G20, a very significant set of achievements delivered during that year, including a focus on the doubling of energy efficiency progress over the rest of this decade, so that by 2030 we can hit a target that was agreed by all nations at COP in Dubai at the end of 2023, that we would double the annual rate of energy efficiency improvement from its baseline by the end of this decade. This was also discussed, and some of you were with us at our IEA's annual Global Energy Efficiency Conference in the summer of 2023, which was also one of the first times governments from around the world stepped up to the idea of agreeing a collective ambition, which was finally delivered in no small part to India's perseverance at COP28 at the end of the year. So we have never had a global target like this. We've never had a global focus on energy efficiency in this way. And I can tell you in the IEA, where we work with governments all around the world, this is really making an impact. We are getting contact, and we have been since COP, from many governments saying, we want to step up, we take these targets seriously, we want to be part of this collective ambition that was agreed. What kind of actions can we take, what policy options are available to us, and how might we deliver on that collective ambition? Are we delivering on that collective ambition so far? Well, no is the answer. We have not made significant progress since we set that baseline of 2022. Now, as you know, many variables impact on energy intensity progress. Energy efficiency is at the center of it, but it's also affected by structural changes, economic headwinds and tailwinds, and different factors. But in 2023 and more recently in 2024, we have not seen global progress moving in the right direction. I wouldn't be too pessimistic about this for two reasons. One is, with the target set at the end of 2023, as we know here, energy efficiency takes a while to implement and deliver, so it's not something that can happen overnight. And I can certainly tell you that policy is moving around the world towards that collective target. Secondly, we know that this target can be achieved, and I can tell you this because in our analysis of the IEA, if we look at countries all over the world, 9 out of 10 countries have hit the 4% doubling rate at least once in the last decade. And in fact, 5 out of 10 countries have hit it at least 3 years out of the last decade. So the target is not unachievable. What we've been lacking so far is a sense of consistent achievement so that countries deliver it year on year and build in their successes. So we are still some way to travel to get to the COP28 goal, but I know that it can be achieved. India is ahead of the pack. Its global progress in 2024 was more than double the global average. Many countries had some, let's say, perturbed years around the period of COVID and things like that. So we're only seeing numbers start to stabilize again, and it's pleasing to see India again in that leadership position where faster progress was made in 2024. And of course, I don't need to tell you about some of the key policies that India leads on, whether it's standards and labelling or PAT, of course, the great work in the building codes, the great work through EESL and its flagship programs, and now, of course, carbon trading. All of these measures that will really help, I think, continue to build that momentum and create opportunities for India in terms of its domestic achievements, but also, of course, on international markets in business opportunity terms. And of course this is driven by investment, and we'll hear from Sanjeev shortly, who knows a lot more about this than I do, but that energy efficiency is about policy enabling investment, enabling action, and we see that sense of momentum happening here. And of course investment takes many forms, which is something that makes energy efficiency a little different to other parts of policy as well. There are the big flagship investments, the big mega million projects, but also all of us are energy efficiency investors. Every time we make decisions about what we purchase in terms of appliances, how we move about, how we live our lives, we are all energy efficiency investors in various ways, and that's why energy efficiency policy needs to be so broad and touch on every sector if it is to succeed. Many things are driving upward pressures on energy demand, and therefore making the job of energy efficiency policymakers and business actors more difficult. And of course India is a case in point. As India has such great economic growth, as it's creating wealth for so many people, these are good things, and at the same time they put pressure in terms of energy demand and energy efficiency. A key example I can share with you, of course, is cooling. Many more people in India are being able to avail of cooling technologies such as air conditioners to make their lives more comfortable, and of course this enhances quality of life and health and comfort, but puts upward pressure on energy demand, emissions, and the energy system as a whole. And you can see here a very direct correlation in any given year. When it gets warmer, electricity demand goes up because people turn on their air conditioners. But also year on year, of course, it's growing because more people have access to that important technology. And that's why some of the policies India has been working on around cooling are really important for allowing people to benefit from cooling, at the same time managing the pressures that puts on the electricity system, on emissions, and of course on the economy as a whole. There are many other examples, and we see many countries in fact acting, and I did say earlier that let me put it this way, the phone has been ringing in my office since the doubling target was put in place, because governments do want to take it seriously. And this is building on the momentum that was already in place. In the last decade, you can see here, in pretty much every policy domain, just using minimum energy performance standards as an example, there's been tremendous growth right across the world, in every region, in terms of enacting energy efficiency policies in many different technologies to make sure that people have access to better quality devices, so that they can afford those devices, they can afford to use them, they can have the energy services that they desire and need, but in a more affordable and accessible way. And one thing we have seen, that when policy is done well, it doesn't have to push the prices of these appliances up. In fact, to the contrary, well-designed minimum energy performance standards with labelling, with marketing campaigns, with good communication can actually create situations where appliances are cheaper to buy and cheaper to run because they become more efficient. And again, we've seen many examples of that here in India. We are tracking progress on energy efficiency. I've shown you the headline numbers, but if you want to look at this in a lot more detail, please visit our website, where we recently launched our first ever global energy efficiency progress tracker that looks in more detail about how the world is doing, because we want to help countries understand what they have signed up to and what they need to do to deliver on what they've signed up to. We take this target seriously, as governments do, and we see the opportunities that energy efficiency offers to deliver those targets, but also in a way that benefits people, benefits all people in many ways. And that brings me from awareness to ambition to action, because at this point energy efficiency is no longer a talking point, it is no longer a theoretical abstract discussion, it is about action on the ground. We know what needs to be done, we know what can be done. There are excellent policy examples from all around the world. Let me put it this way. If you took the best policy in appliance energy efficiency, the best policy in industrial energy efficiency, the best policy in vehicle energy efficiency, the best policy in buildings energy efficiency, if you pick the best example from everywhere in the world and every country followed that example, we would hit the doubling target straight away. The policies already exist, the technologies already exist. The only barrier now is stronger action, all of us working together on our domestic agendas, but also as part of an international community driving towards a target. A key moment in this year will be our Global Energy Efficiency Conference, which reaches its 10th anniversary and will be hosted in Brussels by the European Commission. It will be opened by President Ursula von der Leyen, of the President of the European Commission, and we will bring together ministers and policymakers and business leaders from right around the world to really focus on that action agenda, to see how we can learn from each other around the world to help deliver the benefits of energy efficiency to all citizens of the planet. So please let me end by warmly inviting you to join us in Brussels in June, and again thanking you for the invitation to be with you here today. Thank you very much.
Hello. So while you were speaking, we have received some questions for the audience. So I'd just like to go. So the first question is, how can energy efficiency drive a just transition to low carbon energy systems in India while addressing challenges of affordability, accessibility, and workforce inclusion?
A very good question. And I think, as people here know, many parts of the energy and climate agenda have different impacts on society and on the economy, but I think all of us here as fans of energy efficiency understand that energy efficiency is uniquely aligned in terms of its potential to contribute to climate goals, but also to socio-economic goals. And again, if I think of some of the programs, looking at some familiar faces here in terms of what Ujala and other programs have achieved in terms of making people's daily lives much better by bringing light and comfort and well-being in a way that at the same time reduces bills, enhances access, and reduces emissions. And I think that's a key part of energy efficiency's journey, the awareness that there is great alignment in energy efficiency, which is why we hope to see it prioritized.
We have another question. Which do you think are the key sectors in India that require focused attention to unlock the potential for doubling the country's energy efficiency?
I will have to say all sectors, of course, but I think there's something about a fast-growing economy in terms of, I think, for instance, of course, there's some really excellent policies in industry, for large industry, and the PAT scheme has been really successful. Like many countries, I think it's important to think about the very large number of smaller firms whose energy bills may be individually lower, but together employ a huge number of people and consume a large amount of energy, and it sometimes takes different policy instruments to tackle those sectors. I think the progress of building codes in India has been really exciting, with pretty much all states and union territories have enacted some form of the building codes, but of course implementation matters. The word action here really matters. And with all countries, I think that transport remains a challenging sector for energy efficiency, if only because sometimes it's not seen within the same policy domain, it's not seen as the same issues. But of course, when you see a fast-growing and a fast-moving society thinking about how people move in an energy-efficient way, we see electromobility growing. I think the FAME program here has been really successful in helping that. But of course, it's not just about electromobility, it's about public transport, it's about more efficient vehicles, and that remains a priority too.
Okay, so thank you so much. Those are all the questions I'll request Dr. Satish and Mr. Venkat to please come to the stage and facilitate. So.
Thank you.